My name is Burton Ladina, and I'm a retired judge of the New York County Court for Sullivan County, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, well, let's begin. What made you want to pursue a career in law?
That's an interesting story. I was in college. I started out studying rocket science. I wanted to be a scientist. My marks weren't so good, so I switched to studying English. And then I met a lovely girl who I fell in love with, and she asked me what was I going to do with English. And so I thought, oh, well, I have to support her. I guess I'll go to law school.
To change
She had a
your
lot of
career path?
influence on me, yes.
Um, so at what point did you decide to really go forward with your career?
Well, when I decided to study law, I had to apply to law schools. I had to finish my college major so that I could graduate and receive my diploma, which was prerequisite to law school. And once I had accomplished that, there was 3 years of the study of law, which was not an easy task.
Did you ever feel like you just wanted to quit?
No. Um, uh, the difficulties I had made me work harder because we were making plans to get married, this young lady and myself, and I had to be able to support her. I had to think about once I graduated law and passed the bar exam and got admitted to practice law, uh, who was going to hire me? I had to interview for jobs. I had to think about maybe starting my own practice or joining somebody else's practice. A lot to think about.
At what point did you decide to change your career path from being a lawyer to a judge?
Well, when I was in law school, we learned the law by reading cases. And the cases were selected to be apparently opposed to one another. A judge had a case and made a decision. Another judge had a similar case and made a decision that seemed to be the opposite. And the task that the professor gave to the students was figure out why the two cases were in the same area of the law, but they came out differently or appeared to come out differently. So we had to learn how to distinguish one case from the other. What was different about the facts? What was different about the law? What were any other circumstances that were involved in the case? And in doing that, we not only learned about the law, but we learned something as important or more important, and that is how to think like a lawyer. Because a lawyer has clients who present him with their problems, and they are emotionally involved with their problems. But the lawyer has to think about the problems in a very organized and efficient way so that he can resolve the problems and figure out a way how to get them resolved.
So,
well, to finish that thought, it occurred to me that there are judges writing these opinions. And how did these judges get to figure out and write different decisions for apparently similar circumstances? So the idea of who these people are that were writing the decisions we students were reading interested me. That was the first thought I had about being a judge.
how did you get Monticello, the people of Monticello, to connect with you on a political and personal level to ensure their vote?
Well, Monticello is a relatively small community. It had 6,000 or 7,000 residents. I knocked on every door in the community, in private homes, apartments, and I went from door to door asking people for their vote, handing out cards with information about who I was and why I believed I could do a good job and why they should vote for me. I organized people to help me with the campaign. We wrote up advertisements in the newspapers to elect me. I went on the radio. The radio stations had an interview program where I was interviewed on the radio, just like you're interviewing me now. Only they asked about legal issues that voters might be interested in. And I went to a lot of pancake breakfasts and chicken barbecues. I found out where the people went when they got together. Sometimes they'd go to a movie, sometimes they'd go shopping in the supermarket. I would stand out on the sidewalk and I would shake hands with the people who came and greeted them and handed them a pen or a pencil or a card, something that they could take away with my name on it and some information about me.
So, since you knew so many people in Monticello and you're friends with a lot of people, was it ever difficult to like make a decision based on your friendships with these people?
Well, in law, we have ethics and we have ethical rules. A judge has to be fair and impartial. And not only does he have to be fair and impartial, but he has to appear to the public who might be in the courtroom watching what's going on that he's fair and impartial. Now, if someone is in the courtroom watching me preside in a case involving my cousin Richard, they're going to think, wait a minute, how does the other side get a fair shot if the judge is a cousin? So that would be a disqualification. I would have to say, I'm sorry, I can't hear this case because I'm related to one of the parties involved in the case. Sometimes it's not a relation. Sometimes it's someone who was a classmate of mine in high school, or someone who I played baseball with. And if he was so friendly and our friendship was so obvious that people would think that I had to favor him over his opponent, even if I was not favoring either side, it may look like I was favoring, or I might favor him. Both sides are entitled to have a judge who's fair and impartial, and to know that the judge is fair and impartial. And if it looks like I might not be fair and impartial, then it's not a case that I should be handling, and I would disqualify myself. The word is recuse. I would recuse myself, and the case would go to another judge.
Throughout your career, which case impacted you the most, or like stuck with you the most? Or...
It's hard to pick a specific case. I had cases in 4 different courts. I had civil cases that involved money owed by one person to another, either for a contract or for an injury or some other transaction. I was in criminal court where the cases involved the trials to see if accused persons were guilty or not guilty of the crime charged. I was in family court in which I dealt with family offenses, custody and visitation with children, and adoption of children, child neglect, child abuse. There was a state trooper who was accused of defrauding the state of New York by collecting workers' compensation after he was hurt on the job in the line of duty. And they found that he was actually working on the side and collecting compensation. He said he was entitled to the compensation and it wasn't connected with whether or not he was disabled or not. He was clearly out of the state police because of his injury, and he was entitled to get the benefits under those circumstances, whether he could work outside or not. The prosecution disagreed and said, and the state insurance fund didn't like paying out money to someone who was able to work at something, so they prosecuted him. And I was the judge and the jury because the defendant said he didn't want to go before a jury, so I had to make the findings, not only the facts, but the issue of guilt or innocence. And I found that the prosecution had made a mistake by prosecuting the individual, that the facts that were proved did not establish that he committed any crime at all.
So at any point, did you ever feel like you were missing out on any of your kids' childhood?
Yes, I wish I could have spent more time with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm happy for the time that I spent with them.
So you mentioned your wife before was mainly the reason why you decided to pursue law.
Yes.
Was she the one who influenced you the most throughout your career? Or did you have a person that you looked up to the most, or was it just your wife and your family that kept you going?
On a personal basis, my wife was a lot smarter than I was. She had more common sense than I had, and she kept me on the straight and narrow. And I gave a lot of credit and reliance to what she did and what she said, because she knew better than I did on a whole lot of subjects. The law, however, was my job, and I really did not discuss business or cases with her. It wouldn't have been appropriate to do that. I didn't do that, but she understood that if a phone rang in the middle of the night and the police had someone in custody and they needed a judge, it was my obligation to go out and hold court, even if it was 2 or 3 in the morning. And I did that on many occasions, and not only for cases that were before me in my court, but for cases in other courts where the judges didn't answer the phone or were out of town or had some other reason why they couldn't handle the case. I got up and did the work.
What differentiates a good judge from a great judge?
Yeah. A great judge is a judge who is able to see things that are not so obvious and have the courage to make a decision that recognizes that. And it may not be a very popular decision, but it's the right thing to do. I'm turning the page.
Mm-hmm.
Like you turn the page of a book and you go on to the next chapter. And that's what I did. I decided not to practice law, not to be a judicial hearing officer, not to do mediation, or because it was time to do something else. So I've been traveling, I've been seeing my grandchildren, visiting relatives, playing golf, and anything, RV trips around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been very enjoyable. Well, these are the robes of a judge, and they are black and unadorned in order to impress upon the people the dignity and the solemnity of courtroom proceedings. And this is the gavel, which indicates the authority of the judge and the finality of his decisions.